Thanks for tuning in. Ham Talk Live will be on the air shortly. Please stand by. Thanks for tuning in. Ham Talk Live will be on the air shortly. Please stand by. This episode of Ham Talk Live is brought to you by Tower Electronics. For cables, connectors, and more, call 920-435-2973 or visit pl-259.com. And by the Ham Station. Get your new radio or antenna by calling 800-729-4373 or go to hamstation.com.
It's Ham Radio.
We are back. Good evening, everyone. It's Ham Talk Live, number 73, as a matter of fact. So an extra 73 to everybody out there. Tonight we're talking about NetLogger with the current author, John Marvin, AC0ZG. Recorded live on Thursday, July 13th, 2017. I'm your host, Neil Rapp, WB9VPG. Thanks for tuning in to yet another episode of Ham Talk Live. Tonight, it's John Marvin, AC0ZG, the author of NetLogger, and we're going to talk about how it works and how to use it with your net. So we'll take your calls as well, as we always do, live in just a few minutes. And last week, our guest was Joe Eisenberg, K0NEB, and he was talking about some new kits and some ways to make kit building easier. So if you missed out on that, you can always go to our website, hamtalklive.com, and you can listen to it on demand there. And if you have one of those podcast apps on your phone, you can go over to any of those podcast apps, and we're pretty much on all of them. Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio are the big ones, but Google Play, TuneIn, SoundCloud, YouTube, and then there's some others that take feeds off of those. So just about all the podcast apps, you will find us on there. So be thinking of your net questions and NetLogger questions, and once we do a short interview with John here, you can give us a call, and I'll go ahead and give you the telephone number. It's 812-NET-HAM-1, 812-638-4261, or you can Skype us. Just look for Ham Talk Live on Skype, or you can send us a question via Twitter even right now, and our Twitter handle is @HamTalkLive. So if you think of a question, go ahead and fire that at us on one of those methods, and here in a little bit, I'll let you know when the phone lines are open, and we'll start taking the calls as well. So I'll be back with John, AC0ZG, right after this word from Tower Electronics, right here on Ham Talk Live. This episode of Ham Talk Live is brought to you in part by Tower Electronics. Tower Electronics has been the Ham's dime store since 1978. When you need connectors, mobile and handheld antennas, cables, or adapters, visit Scott or Jill at a Hamfest near you. Or you can order online at pl-259.com or call 920-435-2973. Stock up on those supplies like PL259 and N connectors, SMA adapters, audio cables, soldering supplies, mobile antennas, and ham sticks. Their silver-plated end connectors are even used on the International Space Station. Tower Electronics carries MFJ, Comet, Daiwa, OPEC, Workman, and Ham Pro products. And don't miss their 0% off sale going on now. Tower Electronics, online at pl-259.com. Proud to sponsor this episode of Ham Talk Live.
Ham Talk Live is on your side with traffic and weather together on the 8s.
Scott and Jill at Tower Electronics have all your connectors, soldering supplies, adapters, all that kind of stuff. And they help bring you Ham Talk Live each week. They're taking July to visit with some family and friends, but they'll be back on the Hamfest circuit real soon. They'll be in Berryville, Virginia on August 6th, Huntington, West Virginia, August 12th, Huntsville, Alabama, on August 19th and 20th, and hope to see them myself there. And then Shelby, North Carolina is coming up on September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. But if you need them in the meantime, or you're not going to make it to one of those, their phone number is 920-435-2973, or you can visit them at pl-259.com. And tell them you heard it on Ham Talk Live. We're here every Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern at hamtalklive.com. John Marvin, AC0ZG, resides in Fort Collins, Colorado. And John enjoys the technical aspects of ham radio, especially software-defined radio. And he spends a lot of his time tinkering with hardware and software, a little more than he is actually on the air. And like me, John's a night owl, so if you want to find him on the air, late at night is usually when he's on 40. And he is the author of the client of NetLogger, which is software designed to help nets keep track of who's checked in and various information that they collect. So good evening, John, and thanks for coming on Ham Talk Live.
Good evening to you, too, and thanks for having me.
Well, let's talk a little bit about NetLogger, and you were telling me a little bit of the history of this before the show. So why don't you fill everybody in on how NetLogger got its start and what its purpose is?
So originally, it was written by HWQ, as Chris Gearhart, who was the original author of the first version of NetLogger, and that was, I think, even pre-2000 when the first versions came out. He maintained it for a while and then gave up support on it, and have been using it for nets for a long time with no support. And then when I first got my ham license in 2012, I got involved in a net that was using it, and really appreciated the help it gave to running the net, and decided though that it would be nice to make some improvements. And I kind of looked into what that involved and realized it was a big project, but I pretty much wrote a new version from scratch. With the I did actually talk to Chris, and he was happy to let me try, as a lot of other people had tried before me and hadn't completed it. But I kept going and got it out there, and been improving it ever since. So basically, what NetLogger is a kind of a combination of three different programs in a sense. The primary and most important part is the net tracking, where an NCS it could be somebody who's not the actual net control, but I'll just use NCS in general, because sometimes you could just have someone else logging it and the NCS not having any involvement at all with the actual program. But the NCS would then as he gets check-ins, enter them into the check-ins window, and there's some aids to filling out the information. He has to enter the call sign, and potentially if he's got a QRZ account, it'll add a bunch of other stuff. But it shows who's checked in, and so users who then are monitoring that net can then see who's checked in, and they may not hear the NCS all that well. So it's useful to see the list of people. And once the net starts going and then people checked in, it also shows you whose turn it currently is in a turn type of, turn-based kind of net. And that is very useful for, keeping track of where things are. The second part of the program is an actual logging program, which is similar to, a lot of online logging programs. It's probably not as full-featured as some of the others, but one of the advantages of it is that it works together with this tracking so that you can keep track of people you've already made contacts with in the case of an awards-based net, which is the primary user of NetLogger are some of the bigger awards-based nets like the OMIS and 3905 Century Club and some other, a whole bunch of other nets that actually use the software. But you'd like to know when you see that check-in list, it's nice to have, notation that says, I've already, contacted these people or these states, and you can say, here's some states I haven't made contact with if it's a workable states type of net. So that's useful to have that. And some people use it as a primary logger, others export the contacts to their regular logger, but that's kind of the second aspect of it. And the third aspect is a kind of a chat program. We call it almost instant messaging. It's because it's based on polling, so it only kind of updates once every 20 seconds. But it's useful sometimes for kind of a sideband. For sometimes the NCS will maybe do checkouts or ask questions for people while the net's running on the air. But also it's a social thing for a lot of nets. If you're in some of these nets, you get 100 check-ins or more. You can be waiting for half hour, an hour between turns, and it's just a kind of way of learning more about the people involved in the net. It kind of develops community within the net. So it's a nice adjunct that's there to do that function while you're waiting for your turn for the actual main purposes, of course, ham radio online. I mean, not online, on the air, and it's just another thing that's on the side there. Let me see.
And I'm thinking you could use that for instance, our local net. And just to give an example, this week, the net control had some issues getting into the repeater, and I was the backup net control. So I could get on there and type him a message and say, hey, you need to get in a different location because you're not getting in, or maybe I pick up a call sign that the net control doesn't get right. Maybe they got the wrong phonetics and they figured it out incorrectly, and so I can jump in there and just type on his screen, hey, this was a Sierra, not Foxtrot, or whatever.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Very good.
And just another aspect I wanted to, I want to give a shout out also to the John Dean, who's AC0ZG, because I wrote the client software, but all the clients all talk to a server, which is running the server software that's running on a variety of NetLogger servers, and that was all written by John Dean. I mean, the original version was also written by Chris Gearhart, but that was all written in Perl, which probably wouldn't have handled some of the size of the nets that we have now. So the John Dean wrote a much more robust version of the server that runs in PHP and uses a database backend to keep everything going.
Very good. So, what kinds of nets do you see using this?
There's a lot of different types of nets. As I mentioned, though, the biggest use is awards nets, and particularly worked all states awards nets. There's OMIS that uses it, and they're one of the bigger users. 3905 Century Club is probably just as much of a big time user of NetLogger. There are others that are kind of halfway between, like there's the YL system, which does do awards, but one of their primary goals has been they run a net. It starts early in the morning, and they have 2-hour sessions and goes all day long on 20 meters on the same frequency. And because part of their function is to be there on a known frequency to aid people, so that any net would hopefully aid somebody who had some kind of emergency situation. But that's one of their functions. And they're a lot more informal. They're a lot more social. But they do also do awards. And again, there are other kind of more almost rag chew type nets where people get together as kind of a community. I'm thinking like a group called the Moonlighters, for instance. And there are a lot of 3905 and Momis run multiple nets per day, and some even more on the weekend. They're all single side. Omis runs all single sideband nets. 3905 also runs a CW, RTTY, and PSK nets also. But some other clubs run only one net a day or maybe one net a week. And there also are some more localized nets that don't run on the run on VHF that are like Aries type nets. You'll see some of those show up. So yeah, there's a lot of different. You can help with just about any type of net. But the big users, as I said, are the awards based nets.
Okay, so your users are primarily either a net control or one of a group of net controls, or the people just checking into the net. So let's take the net control thing first. How would a net control, let's say you're a net control of your local net, and you want to set up NetLogger for your net, a club net, Aries net, Skywarn, whatever. How would a net control go about starting to use NetLogger for that? And then how can some of those, like I said, backup net controls or alternates or relays maybe or whatever help out with that? Sure.
So the first thing, of course, is you got to install the software. You can go to www.netlogger.org, and then there's a big fat download button you can press, and that'll bring up a window that lets you choose what version to download. And it tries to be a little smart about it. The default in the window will be probably based on the computer that you're visiting with, but it's support. There's a version. There's a Windows version. There's a Mac version, and there's a Linux version. And if you're running for Windows, it's only supported on Windows Vista or later, which is pretty old actually. But if you're still running Windows XP, you'd have there's still the very original version written by Chris Gearhart still available, and that's the only version that it's going to work on Windows XP. Anyway, you download it, install it, and then once you start it up, you'll see kind of 5 big blue buttons near the top. And if you're the NCS, you want to create a net. There's one of the buttons that says Create Net. And when you click on that, it brings up a dialog, and you can give the net a name. And then there's a drop-down box for choosing which server. In general, just go with the default NetLoggers. There are actually 3 public servers, but the NetLogger 2 and NetLogger 3 are reserved for as I said, the two bigger nets. NetLogger 2 is reserved for Omis nets, and NetLogger 3 is reserved for 3905 Century Club nets. So stick with the primary NetLogger server. The next thing that might be a little confusing is you see a net password and verify password, and you might think, you need some kind of permission to do this. And no, anyone can do this. The purpose of the password is just to lock down the. You're the one who's creating the password. When you're creating the net, you're assigning this password to that net, and that potentially lets you give that password to other people who you want to give the ability to back you up or co-log with you. But that's something you assign. It's not something you need to know to be able to use the software. And then you'd enter, the net control call sign and other informational things that are useful to other people who are monitoring the frequency you're going to be on, the mode you're using, and the band. And once you do that, you click OK, and that will create a net, and that'll put you in the logging mode of the net. So then since you're in logging mode, you can enter call signs in the table in the check-ins table section of the net, the application near the top, And basically, you can just enter call signs and just hit return and just enter the people as they log in. I can go into a lot more depth about that because there are aids. Like if you have a QRZ XML subscription, you can configure that, and then it'll fill in, the names and all that stuff. Or you can manually enter that instead of just entering the call sign. You can enter in, names and whatever information is important for your particular net. And then once the net's going, when you just click on a particular line, it highlights that line in pink, and that tells other people who are monitoring the net who the current person is talking, or if it's a turn-based net, whose turn it currently is to make a call, or some of that. It's just a way of keeping track of who the current person is, and that's basically it for the person who's controlling the net. You can, as I said, if you want to have somebody else do it, then when they start monitoring the net, if somebody comes in and instead of doing a create net, they do a select net, which shows the list of all the current active nets. You'd first start monitoring, and then there'll be a button that says start logging, and you can click on that, and then it'll query you for the password, that particular net's password. If that's been given to you by the NCS, either he uses a standard password that he shares with the people he trusts, or has some other way of giving that information to you in a somewhat secure manner, or there's actually a facility for giving the code logging ability to someone without having them to have to know the password. That's probably a little beyond what we're going to cover on this podcast right now, but there's documentation for that. But it allows other people to log for you, and that can get confusing if you try to do it at the same time. You need to be kind of experienced if you want to ever do that. In most cases, it's kind of like the NCS is on, and then he says, "Hey, I've got an emergency. I've got to go do this, or I got to get off because of lightning or something," and he'll tell the person, "Can you take over and start logging either temporarily or permanently?" And that's pretty much it for the people who are running the net. That's a quick overview.
All right, very good. So, you could hand that off to someone, and for some of these nets that may go on for, days sometimes, in disaster relief, that kind of thing, you could just hand it off to the next net control instead of having to recreate the list or copy it down all over again. You can just log in and pick up where they left off.
Right.
All right, very good. So that's how to set up a net. Now, how about the people who are joining the net and want to get in on some of this social stuff? They want to see what states are on there, what who's on today, that kind of thing. How do those individual net check-ins access NetLogger to see all of that?
Right. So again, you install the software, and then once you start running the program, the leftmost big blue button says Select Net, and when you click on that, that'll give you a list of all the current active nets. And in the evening, in fact, this particular time, that can be a lot. There's 10 currently right now on NetLog. There are 10 nets that are in progress, and it shows you basically the name of the net, what frequency they're on, what mode they're using, bands, and so you can tell from the name and from what kind of net. It might give you a clue to what kind of net it is. Usually, if it's a club, the first part of the net name will tell you what club it is. Like, for instance, the OMIS 40 meter single sideband net is on right now, and the 3905 40 meter single sideband early net is on right now. So those two clubs are running nets, and those tend to be very big nets with a lot of check-ins. And they also have websites that give you background information on that net if you want to kind of figure out what's that net's about before you got involved in it. But anyway, you click, it'll give you this list. You click on the line, and then you click on the button Monitor Net, and that will bring up this whole big check-ins table, and it'll show you who's currently checked into the net, and you might see a bunch of colors. There's a kind of in the help documentation. There's a guide to what those colors might mean. As I said, the pink line is the whose turn it currently is, and then there's there's a orange line. There's for designated relays. There's the darker purple line for the net control. The lines might be gray if somebody checked in, but then they have checked out. There's a bunch of color codes that kind of give you status, and it gives you a lot of information about all the people who are checked in. And of course, if you could just be there just watching if you want for a while, but if you want to actually really participate in the net, you need to actually get on the radio, and that information is there in the at the top. It shows you what frequency they're on, the mode, and you get on the air and check in with the NCS when they give you that option, because they'll when the net's first starting, they'll be going through taking check-ins, and then periodically they may once every 20, 30 minutes, or when they get through a certain number of people, they'll ask for more check-ins, and you just give you a call and you'll be recognized. Some of these bigger nets have a lot of relays, which really helps when it's a statewide, a countrywide or even worldwide net. You might not be heard by the NCS, but you might be heard by a relay, and they'll check you in, and then you can listen to see who you hear, and take notation of that. So when it becomes your turn, you'll know who. You don't want to try to make a call to somebody you haven't heard necessarily, unless they're somebody you really want for some kind of award credit. But you most likely want to make a contact with somebody you can hear well, and make that call, and then that'll be your turn.
And the cost for all of this is
free.
And if you order now, we'll throw in a second net.
Yeah.
So it is all free. So and I believe you do accept some donations for the servers. Is that right? Yes.
I don't get any money. That goes to the guy I mentioned before, who's the server administrator and off of the server software, John Dean. He's the kind of the administrator of the NetLogger funds, and it pays basically for we've got we have three public servers. We have a fourth debug and development server, and it costs money to as monthly fees for hosting this service, and it costs money to keep that going, and so that's where the donations go to, is to keep things going there.
And that's on the website there. So, All right. Well, that should give everybody an idea of what NetLogger is, what it does, how to go about using it. So if you have a question about it, your chance to ask those is coming up next. You'll be able to tweet us. In fact, you can send a tweet right now at hamtalklive, or we'll start taking calls on Skype and on the phone line. That's 812-NET-HAM1, and we'll start doing that right after this message right here on Ham Talk Live. Whether you're traveling to a ham fest, a public service event, a radio club meeting, or you're even at work, on vacation, or at a sporting event, we want to see where you're having fun this summer. And to make it even more fun, take a picture at that place with Flat Hammy. Flat Hammy is a printable version of the Ham Talk Live mascot, Hammy, VE1BCN. So just download the picture, print it out, and take it with you. Snap a picture with Flat Hammy in it, and then send it to us on social media or by email. The directions are right there next to Flat Hammy. And watch our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram feeds for fun pictures of Flat Hammy all summer long. To print out your copy of Flat Hammy, just go to our Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram feed, or you can go to hamtalklive.com and click on the link to the show schedule. You'll see the link to Flat Hammy at the top of the page. Enjoy the summer with Ham Radio, Flat Hammy, and Ham Talk Live.
Oh, yeah. You're talking ham radio, baby. You're listening to Ham Talk Live with Neil Rapp.
Join the conversation. Call us on voice with Skype at Ham Talk Live, or give us a call at 812-NET-HAM1. That's 812-638-4261. Now, here's more Ham Talk Live.
Yeah, be sure to listen to Ham Talk Live every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time right here at hamtalklive.com. Also, check out our Facebook page, Twitter feed, and Instagram. Just search for Ham Talk Live. And it is now time for your calls. So if you have a question or comment for John, call 812 NetHam1. That's 812-638-4261. Or you can Skype us. Just look for Ham Talk Live, and you can also tweet at Ham Talk Live. And let me turn John's audio back on here, and we have a message from Eric Budinger, and he says, NetLogger is great. Keep up the good work. Any chance of an Android interface for the phone? And that's into KOJ. And he also says, thank you for allowing him to be a beta tester. And the King of Jersey is very happy to use that. So what do you say about the Android thing?
Okay, yeah. Well, thanks for that question from Erica. I know him well. And basically, there is another person I know of who has wanted to do that and has done some preliminary work on it, but I'm not sure if they're going to continue with that. It happens a lot that people start and realize how big the project is and don't complete it. There's a chance that I might do it. The software that I use, I develop in Qt, which lets me port it between Windows and Linux and Mac OS. It does support Android. I have compiled it once put it on my phone, but it's pretty much unusable on Android the way it currently is. It would take a lot of kind of rework for the UI to work properly on a phone. I can barely make it work with a pen. I have a Samsung Note 4, and I have to use the pen to be able to get to the little dots to be able to make things work. It just be completely unusable the way it is right now. And it would take a fair amount of work to really kind of make it a kind of an Android app that really would work. But so I can't promise anything there. But there is the possibility. I'm just saying, but it's not likely to be anytime in the near future.
Okay, so there you go, Eric. There's your answer, and thank you for sending in the tweet. And if you have a question or comment about NetLogger, give us a call. 812-638-4261 is the phone number. That spells 812-NET-HAM1. Or you can Skype us. Just find Ham Talk Live. Or you can tweet us like Eric did at Ham Talk Live. And so we'll keep an eye on those here for the next few minutes. So let's see here. Actually, James, KB7 TBT, has the chat window. Yeah. He's asking about the chat window on Spreaker. And, yeah, that's in Spreaker, so I don't have any control over that, James. We usually just take our take it by tweets, rather. Oh, on NetLogger. Oh, he's talking about NetLogger. Okay, so he's saying the instant message window, he's wondering if we might be able to rename that to chat window or something that might be a little less confusing to some people. That's what he's talking about. So... Sorry, I thought he was talking about on the show. So,
right.
That's from James KB7 TBT.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that there's kind of a history there, so people kind of know what it is. My inclination would be to say no right now, that it would stay where it is. I would eventually hope to change it from AIM to just IM, because one of my goals down the road is to change the way the protocol works, so that instead of being a poll protocol, which only polls once every 20 seconds, and we can't increase that poll rate because it just overload the servers, but to a push protocol, which then would allow it to actually be a real true instant messaging, and it also improve a lot of the other functionality and consume less bandwidth too, if things weren't just constantly polling for things that weren't necessarily changing at that higher rate. But as far as changing it just to a chat name, I'd probably lean towards no on that.
Okay, and you already answered the next question, so... Carrie Murray, KD2GUT, says, can the chat window on NetLogger be more instant? So there's your answer, Karen, before you even got the question through.
Yeah, I'll just expand a little bit on that. Just that, yeah, as I said earlier, it costs money to run these servers, and it's amazing. Even though it's just text, these are shared servers they're shared with much other users, and you have multiple nets running at hundreds of polls running simultaneously, and it does actually take up some significant CPU time relative to the cost of running the server. So I've been told I can't increase the poll time beyond 20 seconds right now. So it would take a change in the basic way the whole program worked to make that instant. And that's something I'm considering down the road, but it's a lot of work and not likely to happen anytime soon.
Okay, John, thanks for your answers there. And if you have a question or comment about NetLogger, we still have a few minutes here. So give John your question by calling 812-638-4261 or give us a call on Skype at hamtalklive, or you can tweet us at hamtalklive as well, and we will get your question answered, hopefully. And just checking all of those to make sure we're not missing anything here. Okay, so give us a call. We have about 6 minutes left here or so. While we're waiting on some more questions here, what are some of the most common questions that you get about NetLogger?
Well, it depends on who gets the questions, because there is a support site, and but John Dean tries to answer most of them before unless it gets to be something pretty technical, in which case I have to jump in. But because some of the most common things is just basic Windows things where they download and don't know where to find the file to do the install, and just basically mostly install based questions and getting the software installed. So then the other ones may be how to export their context to another logger. The NetLogger supports direct upload of context to EQSL and log of the world. So sometimes there are questions on that. In particular, setting up log of the world, because that requires certificates to be set up through the RWL, and so there's sometimes some complications with that, and those are the kind of questions I've typically gotten.
Okay, very good. 812-NET-HAM1 is the phone number, 812-638-4261. You can give us a call and ask your question or leave a comment for John here. We have, again, just a few minutes left, or you can tweet us or Skype us at hamtalklive. Now, you've mentioned some of the bigger nets that have been using NetLogger. Any others that you want to mention?
There are, I said, a lot of they run one net a day, or they run a net once a week. But trying to think, there are nets running almost 24 hours a day. It's kind of interesting because I'm involved in the Triple H net, which is the net I kind of came across and discovered about nets when I first got my ham license. Was getting on late at night, and it's like, oh, there's a bunch of people talking here, and jumped in, and so that was the Triple H net is one that's one of the later nets, because it comes on at about 1 a.m. my time. It's 0700 UTC, and they go for 2 or 3 hours, so they cover most of the night, and then when they're going off, we have nets that pretty much are popping up early in the morning. They're a lot of times they're kind of coffee nets, where people are kind of getting up in the morning and getting on the radio, and people discuss the weather and stuff like that.
The three things that you always talk about on ham radio: the weather, your garden, and your ailments. Those are the three. That's the triad of ham radio right there. So
right.
Yep.
So yeah, you can almost always find a net running on NetLogger. Some of the dead times in the middle of the afternoon, actually, a lot of times the only net you might find might be the YL system, who run, as I said, pretty much all day long. And now one of the things they used to close the net and open the net, but now sometimes they will just use the same net and transfer loggers and keep the same net open, and actually change. You can change the name of the net, dynamically. So at the end of 2 hours, they may change to the next session that they have. I'm blanking on the name they use, but they have in the morning they have kind of sunshine type nets, and then in the evening they call them moonbeam, and but they. So they cover the whole day.
Very good. Now you mentioned all day long. Are there any international nets? Are there any outside of the U.S. That have been using NetLogger?
Not based, internationally. I've never seen a net that's based in Europe using the software. And actually, there's no reason it wouldn't work. But again, at night, some of the 40-meter nets like Triple H Net, we encourage participation from international contacts, and the Triple H Net, we actually give priority to them. If they jump in, it'll become their turn immediately, and if there's somebody and there's a rare station, then and we're willing to join the net and become part of it. They'll get a lot of calls from the members of the net to get that particular contact. But OMS also, and 3905 would certainly actively would like to have international participation. But I've never seen a net based in Europe using NetLogger or any other part of the world.
All right. Very good. Well, John, I think that covers pretty much everything we had set out to do tonight, and so I thank you for coming on and sharing all your knowledge with us about NetLogger, and hopefully some other nets out there can make some use of this. And I've kind of been asking around my local nets here if we wanted to start doing that, because it would really help some back channel communication between the net control and the backup net control, and to where you could manage those things and multitask a little bit better. And so I think we're going to give it a shot at some point. So thank you for writing that and coming on and telling us all about it.
Oh, thanks again. Do you have a second just to say the other
Sure.
Give some other resources? So yeah, if you have any other questions and stuff, there's the NetLogger website. There's user forums, and there's also support for answering specific problems. And then the actual under the application, if you click help, there's a contents and index, and there's a fairly thorough documentation for all the features in NetLogger, because there are quite a few things that are useful to various people. So anyway, that's kind of what's there. And thanks for having me on, and I certainly enjoyed it.
And remind us of the URL again.
www.netlogger.org.
Okay, netlogger.org. And again, they will accept donations for that to help run the servers, but the software is free, the service is free, so get in there and give it a try. So that is a wrap for this week's edition of Ham Talk Live. Thanks to John Marvin, AC0ZG, and everybody out there in cyberspace for listening and calling in. And come back next Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. That's when we're here, right here at hamtalklive.com. And if you want to see who's coming up next in the next few weeks, go over to hamtalklive.com, click on the schedule link, and you'll see the latest updates there. We're still kind of juggling a few people around on different days over the next month and a half or so, but we've got most of that up there, so you can check that out. So for now, this is Neil Rapp, WB9VPG, saying 7375, and may the good DX be yours.